A very, very good evening on this, the World Tourism Day, the 27th of September, which is every year observed as a World Tourism Day. And every year, the United Nations World Tourism Organization, UNWTO, fixes a theme for World Tourism Day. And for this year, the theme is tourism and rural development. So, in tune with this year's theme, we have organized a illustrated talk by Mr. Pradip Chopra, chairman of iLEAD, who is a much traveled man who has done a lot of work for development, not only at the rural level, but also at the urban and the educational level. So, before we request him to take the microphone, I would like to request Dr. Joyanta Sengupta, the secretary and curator of Victoria Memorial Hall, which is presenting this event in association with iLEAD, to kindly welcome the audience.
Good evening, everybody, and a warm welcome to this online portal of the Victoria Memorial Hall. Also, happy World Tourism Day, which, as you know, is commemorated each year on the 27th of September. In a normal year, entry to the Victoria Memorial Hall Museum and Gardens would be free, and we would be teeming with crowds. But unfortunately, that is not the case this year because we are still shut to the public. But that does not mean that we cannot celebrate the spirit of World Tourism Day through meaningful conversations, which is why we have this lecture this evening in association with iLEAD. And it's a privilege and honor to have with us this evening to speak about the importance of rural tourism, the theme of this year's World Tourism Day, Sri Pradip Chopra, who is the chairman of iLEAD, an award-winning media science and business management institute with multiple affiliations across the world. He's also the chairman and MD of the PS group of companies, which has completed over 300 real estate projects in the last 3 decades. Sri Chopra serves on the board of several educational institutions, and he does so out of the belief that the development of educational infrastructure is imperative for empowering the youth to build skills and contribute towards all-round growth. It's the same belief that has generated several corporate social responsibility initiatives under the PS Group with a mission to empower 1 million youngsters with employable skills. Sri Chopra is also an accomplished author and has written several books on the real estate sector, on management, and on personality development, in addition to also contributing many articles on these topics to leading national dailies. He's invited regularly to speak on soft skills, life skills, and emerging business opportunities by various chambers of commerce and trade associations. But those are not the only institutions that benefit from his insights. 5 years ago, he delivered a delightful lecture in the Victoria Memorial Hall on the heritage of the Sheherwali community of Murshidabad on behalf of the Murshidabad Heritage Development Society. And it's now a privilege to have him back on our virtual platform to speak on the Villages Beckon, developing India's rural landscape through tourism. So all of you who have kindly tuned in, please join me in welcoming Sri Pradip Chopra. Thank you.
And before I hand over the floor to Mr. Pradip Chopra, I would just like to request the audience, whoever at the end of the talk has some questions to Mr. Chopra, please put them in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. We will look for the questions in the Q&A box, please. So whatever questions you have, kindly put them into the Q&A box and we shall coordinate with Mr. Chopra, who will respond to these questions. So with these few words, and looking forward to this wonderful session on the Villages Beckon, developing India's rural landscape through tourism, it's Pradip Chopra for you.
Thank you, Mr. Raman. Dr. Sengupta, Mr. Raman, first of all, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to speak on, which is very close to my heart and also very exciting subject in view of the new development which has been happening worldwide thanks to COVID, which is happening. The entire way we are going to have our lifestyle will have a very paradigm shift. What this pandemic has done is that it has forced us, I mean, it is preponed, I think by 10, 12 years or 15 years, the lifestyle which is more technological driven. The example is today's the webinar which we are doing online. See, the new norm is working from home or working from remote areas is becoming a new norm. You know, I recently, I heard, read, all of you must have read that most of the big IT companies, Twitter, Facebook, Microsoft, Google, they have allowed their employees to work from home or work from remote places for all times to come. So therefore, it really doesn't matter where are you located, as long as you have a connectivity and a broadband or a internet connection, you can be working from a palace, or you can be working from a rural area. So that's going to be new norm. And second is that because of this use of technology, our productivity has gone up. And therefore, and people are already, even before pandemic, people were thinking in European countries a 4-day week or a 3-day week, which means you have 3 or 4 free days in a week. So what will you do in these 3 or 4 free days? The most of the people in Europe are using these days for traveling, tourism, exploring new areas and all that. So what has happened is the tourism industry has been growing much faster because of these changes which are happening in our lifestyle than any other industry or any other sector. And it is also generating, as I will show you my presentation, for every dollar invested in tourism, the result in terms of employment or in terms of economic activity, in terms of social benefit, it is giving to the people in the lowest strata of the society is immense. And when we are focusing this into a rural sector, which is a new trend in tourism industry, because people are finding rural tourism as more eco-friendly, it is more affordable, it is more health regenerating, and it is actually connecting you with the roots, connecting you with the heritage. So there are a lot of benefits people are seeing in rural tourism, and more people are opting for rural tourism, and thereby benefiting the people who needs economic activity, who needs employment, who needs social change the most. So it's actually a win-win situation for both the host as well as the guest which is coming for rural tourism. Is the screen changing? Is it okay? Mom? Now, tourism is recognized as one of the most important sector generating employment and economic activity. It has also impacting the social, cultural, educational sectors, and also giving a kind of a soft power to a country where maximum number of foreign tourists are visiting, because they are knowing more about their culture, their history, their spiritual pursuits, their literature, and so on. And therefore, it indirectly helps the country to have influence in the world community. Now, tourism has been found to be generating maximum jobs. See, so far we were talking about how much investment a state or a city can get, but we have seen that most of these high-tech industries, even industries, there is a huge investment, but the generation of jobs is much less. Whereas the tourism industry has been seen to have maximum job creation with every dollar or every $1,000 invested in this, and it triggers economic activity. It has a multifarious, it creates a chain reaction for economic activities, and at every level there is a job creation and there is a economic activity which is happening. So every dollar spent into this changes hands 13 times. This has been a world study which has been done, and it is more so in third world country or developing countries where it has more labor oriented or labor driven than advanced countries. So this is a world average. So I think if you take this in Indian context, it will be much more. Now we see that every hotel room generates direct employment of 3 and indirect employment to 8 persons. So the investment in even a small hotel where the investment is not much, a single star hotel or non-star hotel, there also with limited amount of investment, the generation of employment is very high. So here is the comparison that $1 million, million rupees invested, it's approximately $25,000. Tourist directly or indirectly creates 47 plus 89 jobs, whereas agriculture, which is supposed to be highly labor intensive, can't match. If agriculture can't match, manufacturing or service industry will not match at all. Now, Government of India, or for that matter, every government in the world has been trying very hard to attract tourists, seeing its employment generation potential and seeing its potential for soft power and for the foreign exchange earning, or in view of the economic activities, because indirectly when a tourist visits your country, it also generates business, because when he comes, he sees the business opportunity, and then he maybe third visit, fourth visit, he may decide to invest, or he may decide to purchase something. So it actually indirectly helps the import-export business. It also helps the investment. So tourism is also helping the other sector of the industry. So the tourism is something which every country wants to focus to attract as many tourists as possible, and therefore the Government of India has been doing all this to increase all kinds of tourism and focusing on our core area of strength, which are the ecotourism, which are basically tourism which are connected with heritage, or which are connected with spiritual tourism or adventure tourism. These are the areas where India has a lot of untapped potential. And rural tourism, let me share one of my experience. I had gone on that very, very luxurious yacht of Bengal Ganga, starting from Calcutta to Varanasi, and I was with some high net worth Swiss Germans, and they were fascinated by the rural life on the banks of the river. Now, they have never seen anything like that in their own country, because they don't see people bathing, or people cooking food, or people transporting goods on the river, on the river banks. And for them, it's like most of them found it as like a living museum. It was something which they never expected anywhere in the world exist. So for us, one of the tourists told me that, what is so fascinating about India? The most fascinating thing about India is that we see so many centuries are still actually existing side by side. You can see people living in the Stone Age. If you go to tribal areas, you'll find people still not wearing clothes. If you go to Andamans, you'll find people are still living the way they used to live some millions of years back. And you find people living in 21st century when you go to Bangalore. And you go to Chandni Chowk and you find Mughal era. You go to places, many places where you find people speaking Sanskrit. In the whole village speaks Sanskrit in one place in South India. So it's like a various centuries all coexisting together. So this is something which fascinates the people who are coming from abroad. Now, what they need to do is basically implement these policies. What we are not good at is implementation of the policies. We are very good in formulating the policies, but the implementation of the policies are not happening the way it should happen. Tourism, we have actually the industry has been hankering that the same facility which is provided to the industry should be provided to tourism industry as well, but it is still not done. The HRD sector of tourism sector is still, there is a lot of scope for skill development incentive to be given for, because see, tourism doesn't require very high skilling, and the tourist lodges or resorts which are located in remote part of the country, they don't attract people from the metropolitan or big towns. You have to hire people from the local areas because they are affordable and they will stay on, they will not leave. But then the any skilling facilities for them is not available, and that's a big challenge for people to start any kind of tourism related business in remote part of the country where skilled manpower is scarce and you can't get them from the towns and metropolitan cities. The historical and cultural heritage sites are also not restored, or they are not well looked after. Most of the heritage properties in our country, I think only 10% of our heritage monuments are under ASI protection. 90% are still not there, and most of the heritage buildings are not restored. In fact, there are many states like Rajasthan, which attracts the most of the tourists who are interested in heritage, doesn't have a heritage preservation law. They don't have a heritage commission. So, these are something which needs to be addressed immediately. So we have a lot of talks, but implementation is very, very poor. Now, other than that, the security for tourists is a very big thing we are still not able to achieve. Tourists are still mobbed by beggars, by touts, by taxi drivers. They are cheated. The taxi drivers are, they don't understand that if they cheat a customer, they have lost many other tourists, and it's absolutely detrimental for their trade and their industry. But it doesn't happen. We still have foreign tourists being cheated. There are not enough proper toilets in the rural area. In many on the highways, there are still a lot of things are not happening. Cleanliness and hygiene is a very big issue, and heritage conservation is also not happening. You will find the heritage sites are being, vandalized. There is still a lot of issues with preservation and conservation of heritage. There is also not enough proper infrastructures. Most of the places where, take for instance Gaya. Gaya has an airport, but the airport is so busy that if one single aircraft is, and that is the place where most of the chartered flights come, but it's so congested, and in fact before COVID, that there was not a slot available. So you are restricted by the number which are already there. If you want to increase the numbers, it's not possible because the airport is running at the full capacity. Same thing is with most of the airports, Delhi, Bombay, same thing is there. So you need to increase your infrastructure. Public facilities are also not available. Information kiosks are not there. Most of the time, the tourists are not aware, or tourists are not know which are the places to visit. Even the guides are not properly trained. We have all these issues which on the implementation levels, we have to really work hard. So these are the three things which requires also investment, because the issue is investment. So the government should throw open many areas where private sector can play a very vital role, like hotels, travel agency, tour operators, handicraft stores. I mean, government should not enter in these areas, should leave totally to private sectors. The things which the government can only do, like highways, airport, urban infrastructure, power, etc., that they can do. Even these can be done with PPP mode. So, uh, but the need of the hour is that we should do, because our growth is impeded because of the lack of these facilities, lack of proper infrastructure, lack of proper trained manpower, and lack of proper promotion and recommendation by the tourists. If the experience of the tourists is not good, if they don't recommend, the growth will not happen. So human resource is a major issue, because I think most of these problems can be solved if there is a proper training. And proper training doesn't mean that skill training. I'm talking about proper training, even attitudinal training, even the training for communication is very much required. So if this is all taken and the tourism industry grows, and if the tourism industry is free from these hiccups, and when the tourists are coming, they give a good feedback. And these days, because of social media, feedbacks are becoming very important, because the feedback given by one tourist can be seen by thousands and lakhs of tourists. Then only we can think of that the rural tourism will grow. Uh, Rural tourism can do wonders with our country, and it can bring about the social change which we would like to see. It will really help the people in the villages. But then the overall tourism policy and tourism policies implementation has to be taken care of. Otherwise, this will not happen. Now, what is rural tourism? Rural tourism is when anything to do with rural area. And see, our country is basically an agrarian society, and still 60% or 55 to 60% of the people are living in rural areas. We have really beautiful weather, very beautiful landscape. We have, in fact, a variety of the landscape. We have snow-clad mountains to seashore to desert to hinterland to rainforest. We have almost everything which a tourist would like to experience. We have fantastic heritage buildings in the middle of a rural area. We have amazing, health regenerating things like, warm springs and things like that. So these needs to develop and needs to be promoted and needs to be properly managed to get the full benefit of these areas. Now, India is actually a land of villages, and there is a variety of villages and a variety of, see, India has the highest number of the tribal varieties. We have tribals which are living in a rural setup, which are like a, Onge tribe or Pygmies, the one who look like Africans, the one who look like Europeans, the one who look like Mongoloid. You will find all varieties of tribals are living. And they have different style of house building. They have different traditions, different dance form. They have different languages. So you have a fantastic variety of these tribal villages coexisting in this country. So we can actually give the kind of canvas we can offer. I think no other country can offer, excepting maybe China, but China also doesn't have tribals looking like Negroes, or tribals looking like Caucasians, or tribal looking like Europeans. They have mostly the Mongoloid tribes. Now, one big issue today in India is, and which is happening worldwide, is our rural to urban migrations. Everywhere in the world, this is a phenomena. Right now, our urban population is only 27%, but it's predicted next 20 years, the urban population will shoot up to 60-65% of our total population, which will make cities impossible places to live. The cost of living in cities will shoot up because the real estate prices will shoot. The urban facilities will not be able to cope up with the influx of so many people coming in there. But this migration will continue unless we do something to stop this migration. Why most of the people are migrating to urban areas is basically for employment, for better lifestyle, better business opportunities, better education, better healthcare, better entertainment facilities, and so on. So people are moving unless we are able to create these kind of facilities in the rural area, particularly the employment. The migration will continue, and migration will create so many problems that we don't know how to solve that. In European countries also this is happening. I have visited France where there are ghost villages. There's nobody who would like to stay in that village. The whole village is empty. And the same thing will happen in India because the children of the farmers are not interested in agriculture. They are wanting to become IT professionals. They want to get a job in the city. They don't want to stay in the village. And therefore, this will create a major problem in times to come. Rural tourism is one way of stopping this migration and maybe reverse the migration. If we can create these kind of tourist facilities in the village areas, develop the facilities already available like heritage buildings or and creating these facilities, ecotourism facilities in rural area doesn't cost money. I mean, a 5-star hotel room will cost, one room costs about 1.5 crore or 2 crore rupees. A room in rural area will not even cost you 1 lakh or 2 lakh rupees. So, you can just imagine that for a cost of one room in an urban sector, you can actually create 100 rooms in rural area with bathrooms. So that's a potential which is there in the rural area. Now, most of the people who are going to rural tourism are going for experience because that kind of experience is not available in their country. They can't find a bullock driven a cultivation happening or bullock cart or these are something which is they can't even imagine it still exists. So they want to come here and experience this. They want to live the lifestyle of the rural people. They want to see how the food which is cooked with the cow dung, the cakes, how that taste or what happens. I mean, it's absolutely a fascinating or very different experience they have, and that is why they would like to come. Now, so living in this rural area, eating local cuisine, eco-friendly transportation, these local folk art, seeing how these being done, and rural, bazaars and mela, which happens every once in a week or twice in a week. For a foreign visitor, this is something, even I tell you, even for a city dweller, when he goes to a rural area, for us also, it's absolutely a different experience or out of, it's a very, very different flavor. For a foreigner, it is amazing experience, and they don't mind paying and spending their time to have this amazing experience. Now, what benefit it comes to us, for our rural area, rural folks or rural areas, it gives them a sustainability for livelihood. It can help poverty alleviation. It can protect the dying art and craft in those areas, help the rural artists and artisans, empower the woman there, because the woman will also find a job in tourist related activities like housekeeping, cooking, and allied activities. It will improve the infrastructures, because if you really want to run tourist facilities there, you must improve the roads, you must have a public toilets, and you must have a street lights, you must have uh, all kinds of other facilities. And see, I have seen with their when they are getting exposed to these people coming from abroad or even people coming from urban areas, there is a big change in the attitude, in the way of thinking of these rural people. Their children start thinking in a modern way. The children start dressing smartly. There's a positive change we see with money coming in and with getting the kind of exposure they need to have. Things change, and it will definitely help the conservation of the heritage properties, because most of the heritage properties are becoming liability for the owners, because every year they have to spend money for its upkeep and repair and all that. If the income it gets converted into income generating property, it becomes an asset, and not only there is enough money for its preservation or conservation, there is enough money also for creating the landscape, bettering the the exterior infrastructure for this heritage property, and so on. The economic benefits are there. Uh, the local, even the other industries like local food industry, local cottage and micro industries, even people who are involved in carpentry or who are involved in uh, iron smithy or these kind of things, even they get a lot of help because of increase in their demand of their services. And this will definitely reduce their dependence on the only agriculture income. You see, when the East India Company came, and when India was one of the most prosperous country in the world, and they came to Bengal because it was the most prosperous state of Mughal Empire, the contribution of India to Indian GDP was almost 26%, and the contribution of Bengal to Indian GDP was over 20%. And the reason for this happening was that every household, most of the household that time was rural, had a double income. They had, in addition to get income from agriculture, they also had income from craft. They were the master craftsmen as far as the textile was concerned. More than 120 varieties of textile was made in Bengal. And this dual income saved them from all kinds of vagaries of weather and famine and so on and so forth. The Bengal famine happened because all these industries were killed. By the time the British Empire came and the East India Company lost, and the Industrial Revolution happened in Europe, and these entire local handcraft industry died. That was the time when famine started happening in Bengal, and millions of people died because of the famine. But it never happened before because they had a dual income. Now, so this is going to be a famine proofing. This is, if there is an additional income because of the rural tourism for the rural folks, and they are not completely dependent on agriculture, this is going to do a lot of benefits. It will revive the traditional art and craft, uh, and also provide marketing. You see, right now what is happening in most of these people are not paid uh, adequate price for their product because there are a lot of middlemen involved, and most of the goods are sold in the cities. But when the tourists are coming to rural area, and when they are directly buying from the craftsmen, then maybe they'll be paid much higher than they are paid right now. You see, in Rajasthan itself, almost 500,000 people today are involved in most of the Rajasthan traditional art and craft has been revived thanks to the tourism and tourists going to the hinterland and the uh, interiors of Rajasthan for experiencing heritage tourism. Now, what we need to do is we must market. First, we must have enough infrastructure. Then we must have a image building exercise we should do. We should have a policy for heritage conservation and management. We should make a tourist friendly environment. We should not be mobbing the tourists, and we should not harass them. That kind of training and awareness has to be created among the rural folks who are going to attract. And we should train the local boys and girls to be able to run these services, because we can't get people from outside. They are not viable economically, and they will not sustain. And the benefit should also go to the rural people in terms of employment than somebody coming from outside. But there can be some negative impact also possible in rural tourism, which we should make sure that doesn't happen. Uh, which are these? If there is an overcrowding and if there is a exploitation, particularly sexual exploitation, if that happens, which is happening in some of the parts of the world where the rural tourism is very, very popular, and this, so we must make sure that it doesn't happen in our country. Uh, Exploitation of the local population in terms of tourism in many other forms, uh, or the local people not kept in the entire development process, then there will be a lot of resentment. Overuse of natural resources like water or other things may cause some kind of environmental impact, adverse environmental impact. So these, we have to make sure that these doesn't happen. Otherwise, uh, there'll be a negative impact and things will get stuck. Now the FDI, so far we have no policy for getting FDI for rural tourism. Yeah, there's FDI is only restricted to the size of the project, which is not possible in rural area. So the FDI, particularly today we are talking about, is will only come to the cities and small towns, but it can't come to. So we have to actually amend our FDI policy for rural tourism so that FDI also come in rural tourism for small projects in value, so that we can able to give minimum facilities, minimum infrastructure, or minimum you know comfort to a visiting foreigners or a visiting tourists. So these are so basically government should open FDI in rural tourism, which is right now not happening, because it is going to benefit and give a big boost to rural tourism. So rural tourism, in conclusion, I can say is the main driver of economic growth, employment generation in more than 80 countries. You see, take all Southeast Asian countries, they are very, very successful in their developing their rural tourism. Bangkok has done, Thailand has done amazing jobs, and so has I have seen in facilities being created, amazing facilities created in Sri Lanka, very small country, or Cambodia, or Vietnam, or Laos, or talk about even Myanmar is doing great jobs right now. They're working. So if they can do it, we can also do it. And in fact, in some parts of India, it's also happening. It's not that it's not happening. There's a tea tourism which is happening in the tea gardens. There's in Kerala, a lot of tourism is happening at backwaters and in the villages and things like that. So it's happening in India, but it should happen in larger scale. And to make it happen, the main focus we have to do is the development of the human resources, because you see, the rural tourism doesn't require much investment. It compared to the big hotel or five-star hotel, the investment requirement is much less. But then it is only work if there is a human resource available. And we should also think of circuit development approach. When a tourist is visiting, he should have the option of going to many places. See, I had experienced rural tourism in Germany and in France, where what they have done is that they had made a circuit, and you go and check in one small village, and there you spend your night. Next day, you walk to the other village, and it's a very picturesque place where you walk. So the weather is very good, and the walk is very fascinating, and your luggage is already brought to the next village by car or by other motor transport. And you come there on the way, you visit some of the nice places, or you visit the rural, you taste the local wine, or you taste the local food, and you arrive in the next village. And then it keeps on happening. 7 days you have visited these 6-7 villages, and you are back to the village from where you started. And from there you start in one village and you also end it there, and so that from there you can, which is anyway connected with either train or whatever other transport is. This can be planned here also. So we could do this kind of interesting walks or trekking or whatever is possible. So that's all I want to say, that rural tourism is a big opportunity for India. And now that people will have more time uh, for holidays because work weeks are reducing, people are going to work from remote areas. They can choose from where they would like to work. It can be also a rural setting. People can, most of the people are now talking about becoming a permanent traveler. That means all your life you will travel. All you need to have is a laptop and good connectivity, and you explore the world. You don't stay in one place. You keep on traveling. This is how some of the people has adopted this lifestyle. I think more and more people will adopt, and they will definitely want to stay in places which are not very expensive, which are eco-friendly, where their health is ensured, where the air is pure, where the food is very good, where they are learning something new. So now if that happens and more people will work while traveling, you can imagine the volume of business it will generate. For India, this is a great opportunity for us to create employment, to bring economic activity, to revive our dying art and craft, to restore and conserve our heritage properties, and to expose the people from the rural areas to modern technology, modern lifestyle, modern thinking, and so on, to get them out of their superstition and dogmas. I think it's a great opportunity for us, and therefore we must grab this opportunity. All of us, don't think that government is only going to do it. All of us should contribute to make it happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pradeep, for that entire panorama of thoughts and ideas on how to go about rural development through tourism. It's a whole lot of ideas. There is one question here by a certain Mr. Anonymous, who always prefers this label of being anonymous, though I know who it is. I want to ask you, sir, please let me know what is the future of tourism industry in India during the COVID-19 and post-corona?
Great future. People are already, craving to get out. People are craving to travel. People are craving. You will find the moment Corona ends, you will not find a room in any hotel anywhere in India.
That would be probably for a certain period of time, to when this kind of being hemmed in, staying at home, and that kind of outlet is required. But after that, and what next? We'll probably go back to square one.
See, what is going to happen, Mr. Raman, is that you have now becoming used to work from distance, work from your laptop, work from using, these platforms of Zoom and all that. Now, if I have these options earlier, many a times I was not traveling because I wanted to remain in touch with my office, and I thought if I leave, the office will have, my work will get jeopardized and all that. Now I don't have that fear. I know that I can do business, I can look after my office, which was right now I'm doing the same thing, staying in my house. So if I can stay in my Calcutta house and look after the business, I can stay in my Bikaner house also and do. I can go to Darjeeling and also do it. So then that fear gone, I'll not, whenever there's an opportunity comes to travel, I'll travel. You see, so you think in positive that more and more people will travel. I am predicting that, in fact, you will not find rooms in coming years. You have to actually build. The tourist industry will get the maximum benefit post-COVID and for many years to come.
Yeah, you took the example of Kerala and some other states where it has kind of had a success story. of promoting rural tourism. Why do you think it is working in certain parts and not working in certain other parts? Is there the lack of will, or does it have anything to do with the literacy level of the rural population? Why do you think this kind of discrepancy is existing? Or do you think that there are certain attractions in some states which do not exist in some other states? Because you yourself said that in Bengal you undertook that journey from the north to the south, and that it threw up immense opportunities for doing a lot of things for tourism. Then why is it that that is not happening? If you were made the tourism minister now, what are the first 4 or 5 things that you would do?
See, the first thing which I will do in, let's say, to promote tourism in Bengal is that I give the status of industry to the tourism industry as well. You see, I will give you all the benefits which somebody gets by investing in other industry. I will also give it to the tourism industry, for instance, capital subsidy, for instance, and many other facilities which are available. So that will give a big boost to the tourism industry. Second, which I will do is I will also help the startup hotels exemption from tax, at least the local tax which is in our hand, for at least the first few years, where they can settle and they can get themselves established, which is available in many other states, but this is not available here. So that is second thing I will do. Third is the promotion. You see, the promotion also, the Bengal is doing now a good job, but then you look at the promotional videos and the promotion which Rajasthan is doing, and off late Gujarat has done, or off late many others. You see, the success story in Kerala was mostly their amazing promotions. They had been doing, their visibility was fantastic. That has actually created that kind of buzz. So that you need to do that kind of promotion activities. So all these three things, and you are right that they are all mix of things. It's also the literacy rate. It is also the attraction which you have. See, Rajasthan doesn't have the same literacy rate as Kerala is, but Rajasthan also attracts a very large number of tourists, all because of their entire the number of heritage properties and the number of places interesting for tourists to visit. That's a big advantage. You don't have those kind of things in Bengal.
Mm-hmm. Right. Joyanta, do you have any questions?
No, not really at the moment. I immensely enjoyed the talk. It was full of uh, so many insights and a very clear roadmap. So I think I have, in a sense, the question that was asked online and which Mr. Chopra answered so beautifully actually takes care of a couple of concerns that I had, but they have been addressed very beautifully. So I have none for now.
Mm-hmm. And you also talked about the public-private partnership, right? Now, to what extent do you think that it is workable in an area like tourism?
See, I would say, Mr. Raman, that government has no business to be in business. So the government-owned hotels, like let's put it this way, I had gone and seen some of the hotels which are run by West Bengal Tourism Development Corporation. Why should the government run by tourism? They should, I had visited the Heritage Hotel in Kalimpong, Morgan House.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing property. Go and see the way it is run by the government. You give it to me, I tell you how it will run. Yeah, so this is, you should not, enter into area you're not good at. The government is not good in running businesses. They have no business to be in business. So they should privatize all their hotel properties. They should privatize all their, tourism-related activities which they are undertaking themselves. They should give it to private sector. And the PP mode can happen in many other areas, like development of the river fronts, for instance. If you give somebody a river front to develop and say, okay, you can run the a restaurant there and you are permitted to do certain things, we will not invest. You invest the entire money but you can recover that money by creating some commercial activities or doing some commercial. See, the government doesn't have money to do all these development. But if you give it to private sector and they see that there is a business angle to it, they'll definitely do it. So you don't invest anything, you don't manage, because if you manage, you will make a mess out of it. So it's a better that you give it to private sector and they invest and they also manage.
Now, do you think combining it with a different kind of experience will give a value addition to these kind of rural tourism experiences? Say, on the one hand, you also emphasize on the fact that people like the experience, which is different from the urban experience, or even foreigners who like a different kind of experience. Now, in a case like Kerala, it is sometimes also combined, as far as foreign tourists are concerned, with a wellness program. You know, so they may spend 2 weeks at a wellness center to get rid of certain ailments, or at least they think that they will get rid of certain ailments. So, do you think if you combine it with something that is your strength, basically, apart from the pure touristic experience, that is going to be a value addition for promoting the tourism as well?
Of course. See, most of these Kerala healthcare centers, the rejuvenation center, this Ayurveda, health resorts are doing extremely well, because Ayurveda is a hot selling concept and hot selling proposal to worldwide. People are sick of these allopathic medicines and the modern medicines and all that. People have more faith in alternative medicine, particularly Ayurveda. Ayurveda, we talk about, it's not curative medication, it's actually proactive preventive medication, what we are trying to. So I think this will work. See, in Baden, for instance, in Germany, we have these wellness centers which are very expensive and they make a lot of money. So you can create these millions of Baden here. We have that potential of doing that, and it will get a lot of attraction. See, more than that, people will come to these places if they are affordable, and if they are health regenerating, and if they are provided with emergency healthcare system. Most of the high net worth individuals, senior citizens from these Western countries will come and spend their winters in Indian hinterland, because it is the ambient weather, it's harsh cold there, and if they get all these facilities, they'll come for longer duration. They'll come for 3 months or 4 months. So that's a bigger chunk of revenue. This whole thing can happen. Germans will come. Germans, as I don't have to tell you, that Germans are the most traveled, people in the world. They'll take holidays every 3 months or every 4 months or 6 months. They'll at least travel twice in a year.
Yeah, they are like the Bengalis of Europe.
So,
Here also in India, you go anywhere, you will come across Bengalis who are always traveling and visiting, right?
Bengalis and Gujaratis.
Yeah, and Gujaratis, of course. Yeah. Good. Thank you. That was very, very interesting. And if there are no further questions, I would like to thank you very much for this very insightful roadmap that you have prepared. Probably it is a kind of roadmap which could be forwarded to certain organizations as well, including government and non-government organizations, as a thing to ponder over, to think over whether some of these points can be picked up from here. So I would like to request you to think of that whether you can forward these recommendations to certain authorities for having a look at it, at least if not follow it in toto, at least pick up certain points over there which are workable for both parties, let us say, in some way or the other. So thank you very much. And
Thank
that
you.
was a wonderful way of celebrating World Tourism Day today and making a foray into development of rural infrastructure and promoting rural tourism. Thank you all for joining, and thank you also the team at iLEAD for taking care of the technical aspects over here. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mom and Tomal and all the others who are behind the scenes here. So, thank
Thank
you till we have the next event.
you.
Thank you. Thanks. Good night.